Hello, everyone. Thank you for hopping on live today. I'm very excited. In just a moment, we will have Jen join us to talk about her amazing experience on her journey towards healing of a very rough inflammatory condition called endometriosis. So we are just waiting for her to hop on any moment now. And for those who are there, oh, there she is.
Hello.
Awesome. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much. I was just telling our followers, I was about to tell them about endometriosis briefly, that it's an inflammatory condition, and that you'll be hopping on to share your experience in healing and your journey, and what are those non-traditional ways that helped you mitigate your symptoms and pretty much heal endometriosis. Before we get started, I would like, if you can, share briefly what you know about the condition, if you can share what it is, and then you can just share your experience, like how severe were your symptoms, and what are those non-traditional things that you did to help you that you won't hear from a regular allopathic doctor.
Yeah, sure. I just came upstairs to try to avoid my dogs so they won't bark in the background, but they followed me. So,
Okay, that's okay.
Anyway,
people love dogs.
joining. By the way, I'd love people to put their questions and comments in the chat. This is so endometriosis, which I'm guess is such the focus of what we're talking about today, but really the lifestyle changes that I made have so many other applications. But endometriosis is an inflammatory condition, which an allopathic doctor wouldn't tell you. The more progressive researchers are really starting to identify endo as an inflammatory and maybe even an autoimmune disease. And it's basically where cells that are similar to your uterine lining grow outside of your uterus, right? So that your bladder and your bowel and all around in your pelvis. And it can be very, very painful. It can cause painful periods. It can cause pain between periods. It can cause bowel obstructions and all kinds of, really awful things. It takes women a long time to get diagnosed with this condition. I think the statistics are like it's several years.
Yes.
That's just part of women's health not being top of mind for so many doctors, and the research funding doesn't go into women's health, and I can go on and on. But I learned that I had endometriosis in my early 20s. I had an ovarian cyst that was actually visible. It was pushing my bladder out. I was a long distance runner at the time, and I lifted my shirt up and there was a bulge, and I was like, ooh, I better go to the doctor. And I had a 6 centimeter ovarian cyst removed. And, so that was, what was that, like 2000 something. And, the doctor tells you like, oh, you're going to have problems with fertility and, you're going to have pain and just go on birth control. And it's like, really? Or you can do, medical menopause. And I was like 22 and I was like, I don't want to be in menopause. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So I suffered, and I had, really painful periods. It got to the point where I was missing maybe 1 or 2 days of work most months because I was in so much pain. I had a time when I was in so much pain that I was vomiting, and I thought, it was like pain like childbirth. I have done a lot of healing. I also, have GI issues and other things. And so I had a functional medicine doctor, and I've kind of been on a research journey a lot of my late 20s, early 30s. I'm 42, turning 43 now. But I still wasn't better. I was working out and I was eating healthy, quote unquote, Whole30, clean, quote unquote, clean foods, and it wasn't enough. And so I actually met a doctor in Scottsdale. I lived in Arizona at the time, and I did some genetic testing. She was an OBGYN who got into the genetic kind of personal medicine. And so I ran my genes. This was in 2019, so this was 5 years ago. It's more sophisticated now. I think I had 50 genes tested, and now they test, I don't know, like 100 or plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I learned about my body, and she was kind of explaining to me kind of my genetic mutations and how that materialized in my experience. And she suggested to me a ketogenic diet and sunshine and supplements. And I have to be honest, at first, this was summer of 2019, I didn't take her seriously.
Mhm.
I bought the supplements and I started taking the supplements, but it was like, I felt like I had a functional medicine doctor and I thought I knew it all, right?
Mhm.
And I moved to Dallas just before the pandemic. And in the pandemic, I was still suffering, but I had time on my hands. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. So I brought some show and tell. I bought a ketone meter. This is a new one that does ketone and glucose.
Yes.
And I started experimenting with removing carbohydrates from my diet, playing with seeing how that impacted my blood sugar and my ketones, and fasting. And so the pandemic was a perfect time to just kind of experiment on myself. And not only did I lose weight and lose a lot of inflammation, so one of the things in my genetics is that I'm very prone to inflammation. So it kind of makes sense that I have an inflammatory disease.
Mhm.
And I think it was mid 2021, so about a year later, I was back in Scottsdale. I was getting tons of sun. This must have been, actually, it must have been 2020. It was still pretty thick in the pandemic. I was getting tons of sun. I was cold plunging, which we can talk
Yes.
about that.
Awesome.
And I realized I had a cycle start and I had no pain. And so it was the first time in my entire life, like even as a fifth grader, I had pain. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
something, this really worked. And so,
Give me goosebumps right now. Oh my
yeah.
God.
So, I also had, by the way, I had excision surgery at NYU Langone in New York in December of 2020. And the doctor there, Kathy Wong, she's the head of the Endometriosis Center, and she's really open-minded. And so she's doing excision surgery with a robot. And she has a special radiologist who can identify endometriosis on an MRI, which most radiologists can't do.
No.
And so it gives her a preoperative plan. So you send your scans to her radiologist. And I learned that I had endo tissue that was connecting my uterus to my bowel. So I
Wow.
was at risk for eventually that tissue growing into my bowel and causing a bowel obstruction. So
Mhm.
I had these two things going on. I was doing this lifestyle, but at the same time, I also did the surgery because I just
Right.
wanted to cover all my bases. But I'll
Right.
tell you, so the lifestyle keeps the pain at bay, right? We know that, and I guess we should talk a little bit about why that works. We know that fasting and ketosis are increasing the chances for your body to go into autophagy.
Yes.
If you don't know that word, Google that word, AUTOPHAGY. So autophagy is your body's cleaning. And so
Yeah.
when we feed ourselves all the time, our body doesn't have a chance to clear out the mitochondrial junk in your cells from all of that work that it's doing. And you're essentially just like junking up your body. That's how you end up with, genetic mutations that turn into cancerous cells and then they keep going. Your body is designed to heal itself
Exactly.
if you give it the right environment, right? And
Exactly.
so, think back, we didn't eat all the time. Like humans were not meant to eat all the time and have, sugary foods at their disposal. Those were like rare things that only happened in spring. And, if you think about like the human body, our food has changed so much, but the body hasn't adapted to what society's done with the food system. And so, autophagy is something that I've spent a lot of time researching because it's what healed me. And the way to get into autophagy is a ketogenic diet and fasting. And so, for those of you who are learning this and kind of studying this, I'll tell you that the path is clunky. And I'll even tell you where I am now, which is I'm actually not in ketosis, and I'll explain that. But start with removing carbohydrates from your diet. Start with getting sunrise in the morning, sunshine during the day, and then sunset at night. And so there's a whole piece to this that that's quantum, right? It's light. Light is, we think about how plants need food and water and light, and we don't think
Mhm.
of ourselves as needing light, but it's a huge part of the equation. And so the routine became fasting, playing with intermittent fasting, then longer fasts, maybe 24 or 48 hours. And then it was, ketogenic diet. I could get myself into pretty deep ketosis, like 2 and 3.0, 4.0. You guys, if you go to Keto Mojo's website, you can learn the glucose ketone index, so your GKI. So it's the ratio of your ketones to your blood sugar. And it'll show the deeper you are in ketosis and the lower your blood sugar is, the more healing state you're in. And Keto Mojo just does a great job on their website explaining that. They do a great job showing you kind of a chart of like how deep of ketosis you're in and how it's used to heal. And so I spent a lot of time in like deep ketosis.
Yeah.
And that's being diligent. That
So
is, go ahead.
really quick, if you don't
Oh,
mind
sorry.
me interrupting briefly, no, for those who don't know, cutting carbs becomes sugar in the body. So it's not just
Right.
about cutting sugar like cookies and cake, and things that you would think are the bad things. It's even
Sweet
and maybe in your
potato.
situation you can speak to that. Yeah, you may have even cut out certain or all fruits and vegetables if you
Yeah.
want to get into that deep ketosis state. So
Yeah.
so can you speak a little bit about how hardcore you went?
So that's right. So that's what I used to believe, that those foods were quote unquote healthy. And it's not to say that they don't have nutritious properties. They do.
Exactly.
But when you're wanting, so right now, most Americans, probably most people globally, their bodies are more adapted to burning glucose than ketones.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about flipping your G to K switch, which is your glucose to ketone switch. And
Mm-hmm.
the idea is that when you're metabolically healthy, which I think is like 5 to 10% of the US,
Mm-hmm.
your body is adapted to burn either glucose or ketones. And so the goal of doing this deep ketosis is, I just eliminated all carbohydrates in the beginning. And I like to make sure that people know that you don't have to live that way forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's to heal your metabolic state, because ketosis isn't a diet. We're not talking about dirty keto and like all the packaged products and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about eating meat, bacon, cheese, full
High
fat
fat.
yogurt, high
Mm-hmm.
fat, full fat, saturated fat,
Mm-hmm.
olive oil, avocado, um, and the idea is, you eat other people's fat, animal fat, and avocados, so that your body learns to burn that fat. And then eventually, what you want to do is get into a calorie deficit, so your body is burning its own fat. So you train your body to burn fat by feeding it fat. So, bacon for breakfast, avocado on, maybe a little salad. I used to do microgreens with avocado and some olive oil, some chicken, or, if any kind of meat that I wanted. And once your body is used to burning the fat that you're putting in it, it gets used to burning your own fat. So then you kind of drop down into a calorie deficit. That's why when you hear people, well, there's two reasons. People go on a ketogenic diet and they're like, oh, I lost 8 pounds in the first week. Well, they're dropping inflammation, because the
Exactly.
ketogenic state is anti-inflammatory. So you're going to lose all the water and the puffiness in your face. And even the puffiness in my face today is inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes commitment. And I think, one of the things I would suggest, because I have a lot of girlfriends who want to heal, but they're not there. You have to want to heal, and you have to be willing to experiment on yourself. And so get the ketone meter and understand, and get a blood, get one that has blood glucose and
Mm-hmm.
ketones, so that when you eat X, this is what it does to my blood sugar. When I eat Y, this is, I drop out of ketosis or I don't drop out of ketosis, because every body is a little bit different. And people are really obsessed with saying, well, like, what are the number of carbs I can eat? It's different. It depends on how much exercise you get. It depends on your genetics. Like, it depends on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the pandemic learning my body and
Mm-hmm.
experimenting, and just know that the path is not straight.
Yeah.
I used to be able to feel when I was in ketosis. I didn't have to measure it. And I could tell if I was in light ketosis or moderate ketosis just by the way my body feels, your brain will feel really smart, and you'll know you're like, oh, I'm in deep ketosis.
Yeah.
You'll almost feel euphoric.
I always
So
called it just like high on life. When
totally.
I was in ketosis, I knew I was because I felt high on life naturally.
Yes. Yes. I just did a 48-hour fast 2 weeks ago,
Awesome.
and day two, I was like, whoa, like this is what
Yeah.
life should be, right? That's
Yeah.
you guys, your brain thrives on ketones. And so, from an endometriosis standpoint, it wasn't month one, that it was like, oh, I'm healed. It took time and it took diligence. And I gave myself the space to kind of experiment and understand and patience to do it. And I think, after that, I was really sensitive to understanding how sugar or alcohol or carbs impacted my inflammation. So if I had, a month where I was, indulging in carbs or maybe not getting as much movement, I wasn't in ketosis as often, I knew that my period was going to be more painful.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this kind of balancing act
Mm-hmm.
that I went through. What else should we talk about?
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. So you said it wasn't the first month. How much time did you say, or would you say it took for you to feel like it's been a consistent, or was it just that sometimes you weren't very consistent with the diet or the light
In
or the
the
ketosis?
beginning, I was extremely consistent. I was
For
fanatical. And I
how
think
long would you say?
probably 8 months, 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
so I was going from, I had fat to burn, right? And so I had inflammation to dump, I had toxins to dump, I had autophagy to do. Because the way I think about it, and you guys, I'm not a doctor, is I'm giving my body the opportunity to clean out what
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't want. And that's including endometrial cells and tissue.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I imagine that every night when I go to sleep, and we can talk about light and sleep and all that, and I'm in a fasted state,
Mm-hmm.
my body's cleaning out what it doesn't need, what doesn't serve it. And so that was the work that my body was doing over those months. And me being consistent was, it was cleaning out that endometriosis and healing itself.
Right. So your sleep was very important in this process, in this journey. And that's where also the light comes in, because we know that light, in early morning sunlight and evening sunlight, and even getting sun breaks throughout the day, will support those circadian hormones like melatonin. So in the morning, that sunlight, as we've learned it initially, is that it packs away melatonin, and then there's this gradual rise of cortisol, as there should be. And then there's a fall of cortisol around afternoon. It starts to fall, and around 6 p.m., depending on where you are in the world and what season it is, that melatonin starts rising. And that melatonin, that pineal melatonin, is what helps us not just get into sleep, but what people may not realize, it helps with cleaning out our body. Melatonin is a very powerful antioxidant, and I learned recently from becoming certified with Quantum Biology Collective is that melatonin actually serves as healing broken mitochondria. So yes, there's a huge part of autophagy. It plays a role in that, in making sure that we are getting in deep sleep so that we can perform autophagy, but it also performs mitophagy, which is basically healing broken mitochondria. So it's really, really important that if someone is experiencing endometriosis, a big chunk of our healing does occur at night, and you want to have good sleep. So for you, Jen, what time would you say after sunset would you go to sleep, and how much did you prioritize your sleep? And what were there other things around bedtime that you did or didn't do, like maybe mitigating artificial light, dimming lights, wearing blue blockers?
Yeah, I would actually say I think the most important thing that people, and these are my blue light blockers that I'll talk about,
Yeah.
the most important thing is actually cutting off eating like 4 hours before sleep,
Yes.
right? Your body can't be digesting and doing autophagy at the same time. So, I like to eat breakfast within 30 to 60 minutes of rising. I go up on my roof and watch the sunrise. And, right now I'm in daylight savings in Dallas. I miss Arizona where they don't do daylight savings. So the sunrise is a little bit later, but I watch sunrise with my coffee. I'll have breakfast. I'll go exercise. You can do that the other way around if you want. But I would say having dinner before the sun sets, really.
Exactly.
I like to go to bed early, but there's a whole movement on circadian fasting. And so, when the sun's out, that's kind of an eating window. When the sun's down, no food.
Exactly.
And that's going to help you set your clock and give your body the space to heal and do autophagy. When we do longer fasts, that's what we're doing is we're giving our body even more time and more space to do that. But Amy, you asked about sleep. I would say that off and on in my life, I've struggled with sleep. And so I really focused on sleep in this period. And I started taking magnesium, citrate, and then I also took a supplement from my doctor called GAD stabilizer that had kava in it, which is kind of a natural relaxant. It has, I think, a little bit of theanine, and it has some things that just kind of calm the excited part of the nervous system so that I could sleep. So sleep was a big focus. And now I wear a Whoop, if you guys are familiar with that product. It's similar to an Aura ring. It's on my wrist, Whoop.
Gotcha.
It's really popular with athletes. And it measures your movement and your sleep, your stress level. It's actually got an Andrew Huberman, he's a hot topic right now, an Andrew Huberman section of the app where it does rhythmic breathing to calm the nervous system. It measures your heart rate variability, which is a big part of longevity. So it's another great tool. I love tools, right? This is all about science and understanding how your body works so that you can heal it. So I would say the Whoop is a great tool. You have your glasses on. These are mine. They're from True Dark, which if you guys know Dave Asprey, he's, New York Times bestselling biohacker. These block blue light, but they also block violet and green light. You use them like an hour before bedtime and you fall asleep so fast.
Right.
These are really meant for TV. There's actually a pair that's less, because these are pretty serious. When you put them on, you really don't see any color. But if you like to read at night, he has there's different models. You probably have some that are less severe.
I have these that you depending on the time of day.
Cool.
So right now, because I'm in my screen, I'm just blocking some blue because I still want some blue because it's still light outside here.
Daylight, yeah.
But then after sunset, I put these on, and then when it's an hour before bed, then it gets serious.
I like that product. I love that they just layer on. That's super cool. You'll have to
Viva
link
rays,
those.
so
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the other thing that's really important when you're starting to experiment with ketosis and fasting are electrolytes. That don't have sugar. And so Ultima is the product that I use. You can get it at Whole Foods, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it Sprouts. But making sure that your body has enough electrolytes while you're going through this is really important.
Exactly. Because if whoever's watching, if they don't know, with ketosis, as you're dumping that inflammation, you're losing a lot of water. Your cells are losing water. So you want to be able to stay hydrated. It's not just about staying hydrated by drinking water. It's about staying hydrated on a cellular level. You do that with sunshine. If people didn't know that sunshine hydrates us on a cellular level, but also that the electrolytes will help keep our cells nice and plump.
Juicy.
And help restore some of that water that we're losing, because you're losing electrolytes and you want to restore those electrolytes because you get them just from food sources. Your body doesn't create these electrolytes.
Yeah, that's right. If anybody has any questions, you can start typing them into the chat. For women who are suffering from, endometriosis, I think like giving yourself grace and experimenting with non-traditional modalities, like it's not going to hurt, right? And so I did a panel with, actually my surgeon hosted a panel like this, a webinar, and she's a surgeon. She removes endometriosis tissue surgically, but she let me tell all of her patients about how I healed naturally. And I just saw surgery as sort of a complementary
Yes.
practice. And so where I am now is, so I had a big trauma in my life last year, and when all of my skills, like my light and my diet and all that probably would have helped me heal, it's when all my habits fell out of practice. And
Mm.
so my inflammation's up, my fat is up, my weight's up, all these things. And so I just in January started to get back into kind of my protocol from Dr. Hunt.
Okay.
And I'm doing sunrise and sunshine. By the way, you guys, if you go lay out in the sun, you want to be in ketosis. That's the trick. Because otherwise, the radiation from the sun and the inflammation in your body from the carbohydrates, those two things are what cause skin cancer. So if you can, dump the inflammation out of your body, which you'll know by dumping water, and you'll see the changes in your face, but you'll also know if you test your high sensitivity C-reactive protein, whether or not you have a lot of inflammation in your body or not. Then you can go lay out in the sun and start to build that, sun.
Callus. Did you freeze?
Rich background. So I started small, right? And I had inflammation, and I have a Fitzpatrick skin type of 1. Now, I'm more like a 2, or even back, a year ago, I was a 3. And so I could tolerate more and more sun and make more and more vitamin D, which a lot of you guys know is such an essential hormone to so many processes in the body. It's a big part of the healing equation as well. So, I would say, if you're hip to the supplements and you're kind of a biohacker, but you're not doing sunlight and you're not doing ketosis and fasting and putting your body into autophagy, you're wasting your money on supplements.
Exactly.
That's what I learned.
Yes.
I spent a year or so on supplements and had nothing until I started playing around with ketosis and autophagy. So it's hard, people don't like to give up their wine. They don't like to give up their, whatever their dessert or whatever your thing is. But when you learn how good you can feel in your body, which I think a lot of people don't know, they've never experienced it because of the way our culture and our food system, it more than makes up for it. And when you're healing your endometriosis and you're no longer in severe pain, it just changes your world.
Yes, that's so true. Someone asked about the Fitzpatrick.
Oh, yeah. So your skin type, there's a scale. So there's actually an app that Amy and I both would recommend. It came from Dr. Hunt, who she knows as well. It's called D-Minder. And it's this brilliant app that walks you through, based on where you are in the country, in like your latitude and longitude, the weather and the cloud cover, your weight and your skin type, your Fitzpatrick skin type. It will calculate how much sunlight you can get at that particular time of day before you burn. It will also calculate how much vitamin D your body's making. Yeah. And so Fitzpatrick skin type, you can Google that. 1 means you burn most often, right? So you have light skin and you're easy to burn. And, it goes up to 4 or 5, which is dark skin and, unlikely to burn. But the piece of that that's flexible is, like Amy said in her post, last week, is that you can form kind of a sun callus. And the more you expose yourself to sunlight in the right conditions, the more sun you can take, the more vitamin D you can make.
Mm-hmm. The stronger the wavelengths of light, you can stay in longer.
The UV index. That's right.
Yeah. And
you would highly recommend the D-Minder.
Yes, exactly. And as Jen was saying, she started with sunrise every day. She was doing that sunrise light because early morning, actually just before sunrise, we get infrared light unfiltered, and it's pure infrared, which is the most benign wavelength of light, and it can heal you. You don't want to have any glasses on or wear contacts because you do want that light in your eyes, on your skin. As the sun is rising, then you start to get red light unfiltered with that infrared. And these two, actually, they've created medical grade panels, infrared and red light. There's this huge movement also around this kind of light. If you are a biohacker and you don't get outside, even though I would highly recommend getting the light straight from the sun, because 1, it's free, 2, it's a lot more powerful, and there's a spectrum, a range of light in the red wavelength range and infrared, and it's a big range, and it's just more powerful from the sun. But that's what these panels are about, because it's very benign, it's anti-inflammatory, it's huge on wound healing. It actually has the deepest penetration in the body. It penetrates the deepest. And as the sun keeps coming out, then you start getting the different rays of light as the sun gets higher off the horizon. So there's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. At 10%, at 10 degrees, that's when you start getting ultraviolet A, ultraviolet B, and ultraviolet B, I believe, is at 30%, but at 10% degrees, at 10 degrees, you get ultraviolet A, and so the wavelengths of light just get stronger. But if you're getting that early morning dose of light every single day, you're actually helping your skin, you're helping your body develop, I think it's called urocanic acid, to be able to protect your skin in those stronger wavelengths of light. So in UVB light, you'll be less likely to burn, you'll be able to stay out longer. And it's the way to go if you want to start building the solar callus. You have to start with sunrise, and start in the winter. Don't just wait for summer to start getting outside. Start in the winter, because that's
Well,
when
you live in Florida. Some of us are in a place where the UV window is actually very small in the winter, but I hear your point. And Jen, by the way, Jen, who asked the question about the Fitzpatrick scale, she's in my fasting group. So the other thing that's cool that we started was just a group chat with those of us who are experimenting with fasting, that that are getting to know more about ketosis. And so that was my friend Jen. I think she's in Philadelphia. So get your friends involved. Because I think we're all healing together, and this lifestyle is great for longevity. I mean, guys, go on my Instagram. I opened it up to public, and look at what I looked like in 2021. I looked 18 years old because I was so strict about this, and my inflammation was nothing, my wrinkles were nothing. Like aging, like what we call aging, is actually just not enhancing the body's natural, state. Like aging is society, aging is the junk we eat, aging is the television we take in late at night.
Exactly.
Look at those photos, look at Amy, look at Dr. Courtney Hunt. She's in her 50s. I think she's like 10 years older than I am. She looks 25.
Amazing.
There's a lot of vanity that if you need vanity to motivate you in addition to like health reasons, like there's a lot there. So, this is a lifestyle that it seems so odd because it's counterculture, but once you adapt to it, and it becomes really easy. And then you also realize that there are so many people who are doing the same thing. I have a neighbor a block away. He's young. He sits outside in the sun. He's tan. He is fit. And I'm just like, I can tell that guy's doing ketosis.
Yes.
He's doing sunshine. He's got it figured out.
Awesome.
And so, we're all finding that allopathic medicine and pharmaceuticals are not doing what they promise to do for us. And we're having to find ways to heal ourselves. And what we're really doing is going back to nature.
Exactly.
We're going back to the state that our body's not supposed to eat all the time. We're supposed to sleep without food so our body can heal itself. We're supposed to get sunshine and be outside. Like these are all kind of obvious things that our lifestyle has pulled us away from. And so, there's a joy in getting back to nature and your body's natural state, and it's going to feel so good.
Yes. And I think Jen is also trying to point to the fact that you don't have to just have, this doesn't have to work only if you're experiencing endometriosis. It could be any other condition, any other autoimmune or inflammatory condition, or there's a ton of conditions. If you actually look on Dr. Hunt's page, she's helped so many people heal from so many different conditions.
Hypothyroid, like so many things.
Infertility is also one, and it's really, I think sunlight is that huge piece. And you're saying, ditch the supplements if you're not doing any of that. You can even ditch all supplements, do the sunrise stuff, do the ketosis, and maybe add in supplements later, because you can start seeing results with just the sunlight stuff.
That's right. you know, healing is free. Your body is built to heal itself if you understand the biology and the chemistry. Jen asked, is there a correlation to being kid? You know, kids have less inflammation.
Yeah.
So you didn't burn as much because you weren't as inflamed as a kid. You got way
And
more exercise. You also had a better solar callus.
their
Like that's why their autophagy is
happening all day
insane.
long.
That's right. So the older you get, the less autophagy you're doing in your sleep. And we're not making it any easier with our lifestyle. And so
Exactly.
that's why you weren't burning as a kid.
Yep. All right. I think you covered a lot of it.
This was great. I hope you guys are working on healing, you know.
Yeah.
Pelvic therapy and endometriosis and all of these conditions are, you know, unfortunately not talked about enough, and there's not enough research and there aren't enough advocates. And so, you know, anybody can message me if you're going through endometriosis and you want to talk about something. You know, I just feel for women that are suffering in this way, and I can, you know, be your sign of hope that there's a way out.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't have endometriosis and you're just interested in living a better life and feeling good, that's available to you too.
Yeah.
So follow Amy, follow Courtney Hunt, MD. Her company's Genetic Protocol. There are a lot. Once you guys get into this, you start researching it, you'll realize there's a whole movement of people who are researching this. They're understanding it. They're trying to share their knowledge. It's open and free because, you know, this is what healthcare should be.
Exactly. And it's not true that there's nothing you can do about it.
That's not true at all.
You can do. And if you have a provider that's telling you there's nothing you can do about it, keep looking, keep searching, because
that's right.
You will find answers.
That's right. Right. That's well said.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
Talking with you today. I'm going to share this on my page, and I'm going to also upload it to YouTube soon, so people can share it and watch it back. And I'll probably make some posts too that are like carousel posts to help with some of this information that you provide.
That's great.
So
we should put some resources on that in the comments, just kind of the tools that you use, the tools that I use. And, you know, I think tools make the process so much easier. And just consider this an experiment in learning. You guys, you can't really do it wrong. And the more you read, the more you understand yourself and your biology, the better off you're going to feel.
Yes. Amen. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll put all these resources in the comments as we think of them.
Great.
All right, Jen.
And then maybe we'll check in and I'll have reduced my inflammation again and I'll be back, you know.
Yes.
My regular self. I'm on the journey again as well. So awesome. Thanks guys. Take care.
We'll do something similar in the future.
Cool.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Jen. Take care.